You're more likely to be killed by your toaster instead of a shark. But when a shark sets its eyes on you, from one of the worst non-fatal shark attacks in history to the most brutal one that ended with hundreds dead, here are 10 unbelievable shark attacks. Number 10. Rodney Fox. Dragged through the water upside down and along the ocean floor by a great white shark is what happened to 13-year-old Rodney Fox, who was defending his spearfishing title in 1963 when a shark grabbed him from his middle and proceeded to viciously drag him through the water upside down. Fox was able to think on his feet and gouge the shark's eyes, but it soon resumed its track. This time, Fox's arm became jammed down the beast's throat. When he pulled it free, the flesh was ripped out. A third time, the shark returned, this time dragging the teenager along the ocean floor. Using his wits and with the help of some miracle, Fox didn't drown. Instead, he was released and pulled aboard a boat that was just passing by. His upper stomach, lungs, and rib cage were gruesomely exposed. His diaphragm was punctured, his lung was ripped wide open, his spleen was uncovered, his scapula fractured, and was minutes away from veins collapsing from the loss of large amounts of blood. The only thing holding his organs in was his wetsuit. His fingers, tendons, and thumbs in his right hand were all cut. 4 hours of surgery and 462 stitches later, he carried on with his life. Now, he's a filmmaker, conservationist, and one of the world's foremost authorities on the white shark species. To this day, he has part of a shark tooth embedded in his wrist to remind him that he survived one of the worst non-fatal shark attacks in history. Number 9. Saved by dolphins. If there ever were proof that dolphins are humans' best friend, then this is it. Lifeguard Rob Howes and 3 female lifeguards were on a training swim about 100 meters off Ocean Beach in Whangarei on the North Island of New Zealand. They suddenly became surrounded by a pod of dolphins who were acting very unusually and erratic. The dolphins circled around the lifeguards and began beating the water with their fins. Howes was able to get outside of the protective circle of dolphins, and he immediately wished he hadn't. A great white shark was only a short distance away. As a great white started to move closer, particularly toward the women in the water, the pod of dolphins became severely agitated and went into hyperdrive. The dolphins kept this up until a rescue boat arrived, and heartwarmingly enough, the dolphins didn't leave until the swimmers were back on dry land, safe and sound. Number 8. Robert Pamperin. One of the most brutal and unbelievable shark attacks sounds like something out of a horror movie. In June of 1959 at La Jolla Cove in California, Robert Pamperin was diving for sea snails when his screams were heard by his companion, Gerald LaHeur. When LaHeur turned around, the sight would forever be scarred into his mind. Pamperin was held upright and unnaturally high in the water, with his mask missing. As LaHeur swam to save his friend, he witnessed Pamperin slowly disappearing in the blood-soaked waves. When he dived beneath the surface, a 22-foot shark stared back at him before he dragged his friend to the seabed in its jaws. All that remained from the horrific incident was a single swim fin found by the U.S. Coast Guard. Number 7. Production crew's deadly attack. A National Geographic Channel reality show, Sharkmen, was being filmed by a production crew in April of 2012 off the coast of South Africa. While the concept of Sharkmen was compelling enough to be picked up for a show, what the crew was actually doing had more consequences than what they were ready to deal with. To attract sharks into the area, the crew would dump gallons of fish parts into the water that has not seen shark activity since 1999. They provoked sharks into the area, all right, at the expense of a life. 20-year-old local champion bodyboarder David Leonfield was killed by a 13 to 16-foot shark. Before this, the production company had permits for filming and chiming, but immediately that research permit was revoked at the outrage of the local community. The show Sharkmen continued to be heavily criticized until it was canceled. Number 6. Joshua Hawley. You have to remember, when you're in the ocean, you have to respect the ocean. That's where they eat, live, breed. We're just visitors in their home, is what shark attack survivor Joshua Hawley said after his scarring attack with a 10-foot tiger shark. The 28-year-old Hawaiian resident was surfing at his favorite spot off the coast of Oahu, Hawaii's North Shore, when his left foot was caught in the snarling teeth of a 10-foot tiger shark. Luckily, Hawley knew what to do. He hauled off and punched the tiger twice in the face. This saved his life as a shark swam away. Hawley ended up suffering from some severed tendons in his foot and required 42 painful stitches, but no major arteries were affected. Despite this traumatizing accident, Hawley has said that he will return to the water and stated that he feels no animosity toward the shark. Number 5. Brook Watson. One of the first recorded victims of a shark attack is Brook Watson. who not only survived but became Lord Mayor of London later. But that's ahead of the point. He was just 14 years old and he was swimming in the harbor of Havana. This was in 1749, when a shark attacked him. The shark then came back for more. Watson's crewmates saw the attack and were able to drag him out of the bloody water, but not before he sustained severe injuries. The shark had torn away his foot and he had to have his leg amputated. A weak man Brook Watson was not. He went on to serve for 9 years as a member of Parliament before becoming Lord Mayor of London. Number 4. Randall Fry. Friends Cliff Zimmerman and Randall Fry were diving for abalone off the coast of California in 2004 when they heard a whooshing sound and felt the water move as if a boat went by. Zimmerman turned around and saw Fry gone. A shark fin briefly surfaced before the water around him turned to crimson red. Zimmerman turned again and swam for his life. The following day, Fry's severed head and body were found. Number 3. Jersey Shore attacks. These next attacks are the twisted work of a killer shark. In 1916, 4 lives were taken in a series of shark attacks along the coast of New Jersey in the United States. 25-year-old Charles Van Sant was the first victim, who bled to death after the shark ripped the flesh off his thigh during an early evening swim. The shark came again 5 days later for 27-year-old Charles Bruder, who had a shark tear in his abdomen and severed his legs as he swam off the beach at Spring Lake. 6 days later, 12-year-old Lester Stillwell was dragged underwater at Matawan Creek. 24-year-old Stanley Fisher went searching for Stillwell but found the killer shark instead. 2 days later, Stillwell's mutilated body was found washed up 150 feet upstream. Number 2. Jesse Arbogast and his uncle. The award for Uncle of the Year goes to Vance Flolenzer, who has not only successfully fought off a shark to save his nephew, but retrieved his arm from the shark's mouth. 8-year-old Jesse Arbogast was playing with his cousins, and Vance and his wife were getting ready for dinner when one of the kids yelled out, "Shark!" This was followed by a scream and the water turning red around where the boys were. A 7-foot shark had Jesse by the arm, and it was rolling like you see sharks doing when they're trying to tear their prey apart. Vance raced to the shark and seized its tail before wrestling it barehanded out of the water, while his wife Diane and others pulled Jesse to the shore. He was bleeding profusely and had to receive CPR. Vance went back for the arm. He and bystanders turned the shark over on its side and pried open its mouth with a retractable baton. They retrieved the arm from where it was still lodged in its throat, and surgeons were later able to reattach the arm. Number 1. The worst maritime disaster in the U.S. naval history. In 1945, the USS Indianapolis was sailing from Guam to meet the battleships USS Idaho in the left Gulf of the Philippines in preparation for an invasion of Japan. But a Japanese torpedo split the ship in half before they could reach their destination. The ship sank in just 12 minutes, and out of the 1,196 men aboard, only 900 made it to the water. Their ordeal was far from over. They were about to encounter the worst shark attack in history. Thirst and starvation were the least of their worries. The sound of explosion, the sinking of the ship, the thrashing of 900 people, and all the blood in the open water attracted swarms of sharks. The first night, the sharks devoured the floating dead, but they soon turned to the injured and bleeding. It came to the point that the soldiers and sailors tried to quarantine away from those with open wounds. When one group salvaged a can of Spam, the scent drew a swarm of sharks around them, so they got rid of their meat rations, and after 4 days of this nightmare, they were rescued by U.S. Navy planes. By that 4th day, only 317 remained of the original crew of 1,196. One of the survivors, Woody James, would later describe the nightmare. The sharks were around, hundreds of them. Everything would be quiet, and you'd hear somebody scream, and you knew a shark had got him. And these are all the unbelievable shark attacks we have for you today. What did you think of these attacks? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, and before you go, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to Weeklypedia and click that notification bell to be alerted whenever we upload a new video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.